Hey, welcome to the Ambitious Africans podcast. This is your host, Secho, and I'm super excited to come to you today to speak to you about a new topic. We've been discussing a lot of things these past couple of weeks, and I'm really grateful for the feedback you're always sharing in the comment section, even in my DMs. I really value that I can think with people online and to also see that there are other people who are nursing similar thoughts, who are wrestling with similar things that I am mentally. And by virtue of having this space, I guess we can talk through them and listen to each other's perspectives as we decide to take actions. Over the last couple of weeks, if you're new here, we've been discussing different angles to understanding what has brought us here in terms of what we call traditions and legacies and what are some of the inspirations behind them. A classic example is for us as Africans, we are so attached to the way our previous ancestors or previous generations do things, and we are attached to them because it gives us a level of belonging. It gives us a level of connection to those people. It also gives, I think it's also based on our deep traditions around respect for people who have gone ahead of you, and all of that mixed into one big idea of preserving culture. And in over the last few weeks, we've been discussing really if we have been intentional with questioning the context within which those things we now call traditions were created, and if it is time for us to redesign those traditions, especially as some of these traditions have basically served their purpose, and it's time for us to take the responsibility to create new traditions, because we can't constantly recycle old traditions without contributing to them as cultured custodians, if I can call us that way. So that's what we've been talking about these last couple of weeks, with different angles, different perspectives, different ways that we've just been maneuvering the thought processes around that. And in this particular episode, I want to talk about the new stage of having questioned traditions, having questioned the context of those actions, having questioned the basis of our responses to the world based on those traditions, and how we're even choosing the work we want to do based on those ideas we've been brought up with. I want to share some few questions or some ideas that we can both think about as we're looking to redesign for ourselves the life that we've always wanted. And the lives, well, I think whatever life we want to live, it's partially the dreams of our previous generations. And so that is the import of today's episode. Before I go on, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has commented on the video from from the last few um episodes. I'm going to read a few comments so that, yeah. Um the first the first comment on my last video, where I talk about giving balance a fair pursuit, right? Which was the closing of the series. This is from Esinam Yatekbo. She says, wow, I like the conversation. We really have to rise above survival to thriving. I can see we are creating more problems than we are solving because of survival mode. I have always said, let's be ourselves as Africans and stop the needless civilization that puts so much pressure on us as Africans, but puts money in somebody's pocket. That is an interesting take. That is really an interesting take. And thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like we need to have those hard conversations. This is another comment from Shuban. He says, this was really insightful and would surely help me going forward passionately. This was in the episode I titled Give Me 31 Minutes and I'll Change the Way You See Your Career. This was in the redesigning career. I want to read one more comment before we get into today's episode. Let me see if I can. There is actually, yeah, I think I'll just leave it because I didn't. This is really spontaneous trying to read the comments. I had to like s- scroll through, and which would take a lot of time. But today, like I said earlier, I want us to question a few things. The first is really about um understanding how society works. I don't know. I think I've said it a few times, but I really can you see the passion? I'm saying that really. I really, in hindsight, I'm grateful that I did sociology in university. First off, when I decided to do sociology, I didn't know, like I read sociology at the University of Ghana. I did sociology there for my undergrad, and at the time when I was sitting in class and listening to how, there are different institutions of society, they were all nice revelations. But looking back, I have never for once not used the insights from that course. Like, I've never for once not used it. Like, every single thing that I do is always through that lens. I feel like the course, the lectures, the conversations, and everything we had in that course gave me a new pair of eyes that I have found so useful ever since. And with that learning, I want to share with you how society is designed. Society is designed in a way that there are institutions, there are processes, they all come together to form a system. And the way it is designed is based on what I would say is called the social contract theory. Now, everything about theories and these ways we explain generally life and the different things we observe about life, I really people's like taking a step back to look at what's happening is, this is interesting. The people doing these things might not be aware, but like this is exactly the thread I'm hearing and I'm seeing. And so I really do value research theories these days. The point about social contract theory is like a group of people who are living, I'm going to oversimplify it, right? A group of people who live, in their family units, mother, father, kids, they live in their family units. Multiples of those families become like a community, right? In times of organizing themselves, because obviously they're sharing resources, they're sharing spaces, they're having shared experiences. By virtue of that, they need to self-organize, and the human instinct in terms of self-organizing is always looking for structure. And so by virtue of structure, people come together and say, actually, it would be more efficient to have one person in charge of this, another person in charge of that, X person in charge of that, right? And as much as time goes on, we will hear back, or we would expect to hear from these people that we have put in these places of responsibility, how they are managing these things that we have put under their care. And so the social contract is that when we all come together to sign this virtual contract, it's us, the community, saying that we are entrusting these things in your care because first, we feel it is the most efficient thing to do. Second, it makes it easier for us to focus on other things as our daily lives, right? One person cannot be in charge of building infrastructure for the boats, building infrastructure for the farm, building infrastructure for educating the kids. Like, one person cannot do that. It's not efficient, right? And so we say, okay, we are all going to come together and we are going to sign this contract with these people that we have put in areas of responsibility. The contract is, you are going to take care of A, B, C, D on our behalf, based on the condition that we give you our rights to we give you our right to either interfere in these things, or to now ask questions, or to just go with whatever you tell us to do. And so this is again oversimplification, but the point is the social contract we have with our leaders is basically from this idea that we are willing to offset our rights to you in order for you to do your work, which in this case benefits us at the end of the day. So, in essence, the social contract looks like having political systems. We say, okay, this is how we are going to govern ourselves. This is how we are going to seek justice. So, in the political system, because we have signed a social contract with government, I'm going to say government at this stage, right? Because we've signed a social contract with government, we are saying that, oh, if somebody comes to steal my goat, I'm not going to take the issue into my own hands to determine for myself what I'll do to the person. No, I have offset that right to the social contract, because we all signed this contract. And so because of that contract we have with the government, or I have with the government now tells me this is the way we will handle issues like this. So when an issue like that happens, you go through the right processes, and that is through the political institution. That is where the concept of institutions come in. So the institution of politics, the institution of health, institution of education, institution of economics, they are all different ways we have given our rights to these different leaders to manage these things and be liable, if maybe the word is not liable, but be amenable to whatever they ask us to do, because we are entrusting our rights and trust in them, essentially. So when we do that, right now, the first question is, you don't remember signing any contract like that with anybody. Well, point is, it's like a covenant, right? In it has both European roots and normal human existence roots, right? But I can give you a classic example within our context as Africans. For example, before independence happened, right? In Ghana, one thing that happened was, because there was this merger of different tribes and ethnic groups coming together, when independence was going to happen, legend has it that Kwame Nkrumah spoke to the different chiefs and ethnic group leaders, asking if they would want to be part of this one country system we are forming. Because, and I'm going to guess the idea was that you can't assume that because Europeans put these tribes and ethnic groups together, they want to stay together. They might want to go their own way. So in order to seek consent, there were these discussions, right, where the Ashanti king, the different chiefs, paramount chiefs of all the different tribes we have in Ghana, and their representatives were consulted to say, would you give us your consent to come together to form a nation state? And by virtue of that, we have this contract, this social contract, this social covenant of sorts, where we are all going to abide under these systems of rulership, systems of economic, systems of governance, essentially. So that is what happened. That was when our version as Ghanaians, or our version, if I maybe I don't know, if I think there are similar arrangements like that in other parts of Africa. I know that I don't know. I know about the amalgamation process. What do I? I don't think I do of Nigeria, but I feel like it might be. I might have to do a bit of research into that. But you get the point. The point there is that there has been a social contract between the people and institutions and of government or governance, and it affects every other person who comes after that. Meaning, when those chiefs signed the contract or gave their consent, it affects all their children, their grandchildren, great grandchildren. And so if things have to change, that is why there is a need for a referendum, right? Because there is a social contract that has to be renewed in certain situations. But that is sociology 101. Thank you. for sticking with me. But the reason I wanted to really describe that process was because I wanted to lay the foundation to what I was going to talk about on how by l- entrusting our beliefs, our hopes, and essentially our commitment to pursuing different things in a government, we have essentially relayed or deferred some sense of cognitive capabilities to the system. When we say that we have signed this contract, we were essentially saying that there's some things we are not going to be thinking about. We've given it to you people to handle it. We don't want to be thinking about it. Like, if the lights are going to be on, if the gutters are drained, if our children are going to get good education or not. Like, we are offsetting that burden, that worries to you. When we pay taxes, we are saying that this is the contributions we're going to give you to make these things possible. So we don't want to be thinking about those things, right? And in modern times, as different systems of economics have come up, right? There's also another level of contract we are signing with communities, with companies, with even general society, if we can call it that way, that in a way we are deferring or leaving our cognitive capabilities to those people because we have entrusted the thinking behind some of these things to, institutions and governments. The idea is that we have also done that for other things because it's been easier to systemize things in that way, and so we don't really think about the impact of not thinking about these things anymore. The good thing is that for Africans, we do not have the luxury of always deferring our capabilities to the government because they haven't been successful at meeting their end of the social contract. I don't know if we as a people have even done so good with meeting the our part of the social contract. But the point is, because the government has constantly failed most African countries and their citizens, the average citizen is very aware about how these different things that have not been done impacts their daily life. It's now part of their thinking. It's not part of their worries. It's part of the things they're constantly having to burden themselves with. And so with that, you're placed in a system where you're constantly having to solve problems that in an ideal world should have been solved by these people because you signed a contract, right? You're paying for a service, but it's not happening. So you have to find your own way. The extension to this now I'm feeling is a disadvantage is that because we have not necessarily been trained to constantly think around these things, um in a way that is very constructive, it's very easy for us to get swayed into propaganda or believing things that are not true. And we may not even have the right tools to decipher if the way we think about our problems or the way we think about the solutions we are designing truly meets the demands of either solving the social contract problem or redefining what the social contract should be. Now, the idea behind this is that we are actually even doing the same thing when we put our trust in companies or when we put our trust in society. Let me say society. When I say society, I'll give an example. We have been, because of this same social contract idea where we are always deferring our cognitive abilities or our cognitive load onto somebody else, right? I feel like we've done the same with societal expectations, with in the way that because we've been raised to think this is a part of life. You're born, you're taken to school, you graduate, get a job, get married, have kids, retire, die. Because society has found a way to raise us in this way, we are not thinking We are not even thinking in a way to question if this is really the only path of life. In this case, we've also offloaded that cognitive capability to just hold on to this model. We're like, oh, this is an easier model. Why do I need to even think? Because now, if I have to think through it, it means I have to design my own. If I have to design one, it means that I'm most likely going to fail, and I don't want to fail. I don't want to at least even try to even think if I'm going to fail or not. Like all of that gives me so much uncertainty. I will stick with the social model they've told me. I'll stick with the script they've told me. Now, we're calling it society, but there are different players in what we call the imaginary society who decide these different things that, if you do not ask deep questions, can impact the kind of ambitions you design for yourself. One is, like I said, the government. To enable conformity, there are systems of things that the government puts in place to ensure that things are operating in a certain way. They can do that through media, they can do that through religion, they can do that through economic practices, they can do that through political processes. They can do that through different things because they have the power to do these things. We've vested power into their hands, so they can do these things, right? And so, by virtue of what we hear and what they tell us, we design our lives to fit those systems because, again, we have offloaded our cognitive capability to them. Another part, another key player in some of these societal not let me not say processes, models, right, are companies, people who sell things. Their job is to make sure, and I can even say the economics of things. The job of people who sell things is to get you to buy, and so by that they will tell you different things that will help you make the decision to buy from them. As time goes on, you find that that is the normal way to do things. And all of a sudden, it is the way you are deciding to do things. Now, there's nothing wrong or good about these things. Within context, they are very neutral. It's just the way life is. But today, I want us to really think about stopping to ask ourselves, where exactly is this particular thing that I want? Where is it coming from? Is it coming from things I've heard in the media, things I've heard from government conversations or governance conversations, things I've heard from companies who are trying to sell their products or services, things I've even heard from my parents because they also have been trained in such a way. They've also been raised on such a system that it makes sense. Like nobody's like when you hear something so long for so long, you stop questioning it because it starts to make sense. You train your brain to make it make sense. So much you stop questioning it. And one of the things that makes it even beautiful for people who now are able to question these things are either people who leave a particular system, come back and like, oh, actually, this makes no sense. Why are we doing things like this? Because by virtue of just stepping away from that system, it's like you can see how, oh, from a third point of view, that makes no sense. Or maybe when you travel, or maybe you speak to somebody from a different part of the world or from a different system, right? Then you compare notes and like, huh, it makes sense why they do theirs this way. It makes sense why they drain their roads this way, or it makes sense why they eat breakfast this way or they eat this kind of food this way. Like it just puts you in a place where you have more exposure, and by virtue of that more exposure you can ask questions. But if you live in a system for so long that has been designed in a certain way by years and years and years of conditioning, by years and years of information overload, by years and years of scandals, controversies, all directing you to one particular result, you stop to question it. And today, the question I want to give you to carry along as you make these different decisions, whether it's in the kind of life you want to live, the kind of career you want to have, the kind of people you want in your life, the kind of conversations you are engaging in, Ask yourself this one question. And this would be the question that I'll be closing today's episode with. It is, who decided these things and why did we allow them? Who decided these things and why did we allow them? Now, if you want to personalize it even further, who decided these things and why did I allow them? Did I allow them because it felt easier as a path to go through? Did I allow them because it's actually cost efficient? There's no need to try and reinvent the way or find my own way. It actually makes sense. Did I allow them because there is a trauma response around this? Did I allow them because maybe for their time or within the context of how they lived, where they lived, it made sense to do it that way? Or did I allow them because I was just lazy to ask questions? Right? That's a question I want to leave you with. The second part, or actually the first part of the question, which is, who decided these things? Who decided that you have to dress this way? Who decided you have to eat this food? Who decided that you have to walk this way? Who decided this is the kind of job you should have? Who decided this is the number of children you should have? Who decided you should marry this kind of person? Who decided you should believe these things? Who decided these things? Asking that who question is so important, because if you can find out who told us to do these things in the first place, you can ask why. Why were they asking us to do these things? What are their motives behind these things? And is it a motive that I can get behind, or a motive I should probably question some more? Right? So today I've given you some possible pointers by talking through the social contract theory, talking through cognitive offloading, talking through questioning. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is, it's more like a question, but I know you understand it when I say, what do you think about cognitive offloading based on the context of what I have just shared in this AI age, where we are offloading the thinking of how we do things to a machine? Who decided that we should do that? Why? And why are we allowing them? It's a neutral question. It's not a good or a bad conversation, but just being genuinely objective and having these kind of fun questions in your brain, just to trick your brain to see, oh, actually this is an interesting thing, let me see what it takes me. Maybe you might want to do some research and ask. You may even ask the AI, why are we being put in a situation where we are offloading thinking to you? And let's see what it says. But I hope today has got you thinking. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I will see you in the next episode. Don't forget to do all the things, like, share, subscribe, everything. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.